Morning, everyone. It's Chancellor's Academy. Yay! I have to tell you, every year it's so fabulous to be at that point of being able to say, here we are. It's Chancellor's Academy because it takes a lot to get here. It takes a lot on the part of the districts. It takes a lot on the part of you as teachers and on the part of the center staff, but when it all sort of comes together, it's really quite a phenomenal event. And those of you who have attended before know that by the end of the week, we've challenged you, we've made you think about things, but people always are smiling when they leave, so that's always a good thing. So here we are in the 8th annual Chancellor's Academy. As you probably know, the Academy started back in 2005. And our purpose was to really think about how we can establish a better connection with the districts on the part of the university, but on the part especially of the center and of the College of Education. So the Academy is really an outgrowth of this extraordinary partnership that we have. And when I say extraordinary partnerships, I have to tell you that when I talk to my colleagues at conferences, at national conferences, about the connection that we have with the Champaign and Urbana schools, they are so jealous because they love the idea that we view this as a partnership. We have a number of things going on at the center that are constantly part of that partnership, that constantly feed into making sure that this is truly a collaborative relationship as opposed to a different type of relationship that many universities have with the districts. After many months of collaboration and hard work, I'm really thrilled to be at this point of welcoming you. We've been talking to superintendents, we've been talking to assistant superintendents, curriculum coordinators, instructional coaches, classroom teachers, to shape this week into something that really will be meaningful for you. And we are very, very excited about what we have planned. So this year's Academy focuses on helping you become, as teachers, more purposeful and responsive to the learners. We have a variety of keynote speakers that are coming in each morning to give you sort of a broad perspective on things that we then want you to try to integrate into what you're doing throughout the week. And think about. We want them to challenge how you view your role as a teacher and how you view the students in your classroom. This Academy is very, very much teacher-driven, and that distinguishes the Academy from others that we've had before. As you look through the schedule for the week, you'll see that there are a number of different teachers that will be leading sessions or facilitating sessions. So it's exciting that we see our work coming full circle. As we shared goals for the Academy with the principals, we wanted participants who were very engaged and excited about our objectives for the Academy. So the other thing that we're doing this year in the Academy is that we're highlighting collaborations between schools and the university. On Thursday, you'll learn more about this as we have an opportunity for 14 university projects to come and share information with you. Our purpose in that is so that you can learn about how to become engaged in these projects. You can learn more about the kinds of things that we're doing here at the university, and see what you might be able to take away from those projects that you can integrate into your classrooms. So we have a week that is stimulating and fun. We've got the essentials. We have really good food. And we have space that you can adjust the thermostat. So we have 2 essentials in place. But we have very, very engaging sessions, and we've worked very hard to make sure that these sessions are valuable to you and that they're the kinds of information that you're getting at these sessions are things that you'll carry into your classroom in the fall. So before I turn it over to Interim Dean James Anderson, I have a few people that I need to acknowledge. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge our superintendents, Preston Williams and Judy Wiegand. Could you stand up, please? I have to tell you that personally and professionally, I have such great relationships with these people, and it is such a joy to know that you have leadership in this district that cares so much about the children in the district and the teachers in this district. And every time we have conversations about what goes on at the center and the kinds of things that we want to help you or provide, the conversation always centers around what's best for the kids and what's best for teachers. So you have advocates for you, so that's always a wonderful thing. And that advocacy also is throughout the administration to Assistant Superintendents Don Owen, Laura Taylor, Angela Smith, Susan Zola. We thank them for their continued collaboration. And we've been working with quite a few district administrators to pull this all together. So I also want to acknowledge Trevor Nadrozny, Jean Corder, Kathy Barber, Alexis Jones. All of these people have been coming together to help shape the Academy this year. We've always had to rely on people in the district for support at different levels, and we can always count on them coming through for us, and it's such a pleasure to have that kind of relationship with the people in Champaign and Urbana. I also want to acknowledge our center staff. I have to tell you that this is a bit of a bittersweet academy for me because we have a couple of people that are going to be leaving the center, and so every time you see them, you have to convince them that they should stay. That's the only thing I do want to say. I first want to thank Linda Sims, who I have to tell you, it's really amazing. You leave at the end of the day and you think you've done as much as you can possibly do to put this together, and then the next morning you have 4 emails in your inbox that say, okay, here's an organizational chart for where everyone should be on the following days, and it's all laid out right there for you. Linda is extraordinary, and I think in her other life she was an event planner or is planning to move into event planning in the future. If you have a wedding coming up, see Linda in the back of the room. She does have a wedding coming up, her son. So Linda will be leaving us this year, and we're very, very sad about that. She has been a stable force in our center for a very long time. We also want to thank the TCs, and if you could, Linda, will you raise your hand so everybody can see who you are? If you need anything, Linda's the person. We want to thank the TCs, so if I could get you to stand. Carol Casbier, Brad Thompson, Phil Wilder, and Haney Yoon. And we are very sad to say that Haney will be leaving us this year as well, because she is moving on to a really fabulous job at the University of Arizona, working with some very extraordinary people in the area of literacy. So we're very, very excited for Haney and very sad to see her go. So do your magic, work your magic, convince her to stay if you can. So they've also been working with facilitators and presenters because, as I said before, this is very much a teacher-led project, so the whole week, actually. So anyone, I know that not all of the facilitators are here, but anyone who is facilitating a session, could you stand for us so we can take a look around the room and see any kind of... Okay, and we also have something new this year for the first time. We have an early childhood strand, and we're very excited. We have a lot of early childhood people right there, right? Raise your hands, right? Okay, they're like, could you not point us out, please? And we have Doctors Ami Santos, Mickey Ostrowski, and Tweety Yates who will be facilitating those. Do you guys want to stand? They'll be working... They've been working with Head Start to coordinate this strand, and it's really quite a lovely thing to be adding early childhood, and we hope to expand that next year to the districts as well. Okay, so the other people that I have to acknowledge, because if we didn't have these people, this place would just fall apart, and we're so grateful that we have these people to support us at the center. So Lila Moore, Lila, She's hiding behind the... Ann Butler has been doing some really amazing work this week helping us, and you'll laugh, but in all of your rooms there are bags of candy. We even have people who are designated candy bag stuffers, so not to worry, if you run out, come find us, we will have a new bag in there. And we want to thank Daryl Poe, who is a new administrative assistant here at the center. He came in and hit the ground running, and Daryl has been something else. I mean, he is a force to be reckoned with. The first day he was there, I said, Daryl, there he is. So the first day I said, Daryl, I've been thinking about this thing, and he goes, I'll be back. And 2 hours later came back with it completely done in the most amazing fashion, and no administrator can steal him away, sorry. But we are so happy to have Daryl. Also, Ritu, are you back there, Ritu? I'm not sure I can see Ritu. And Beth Friedenberg, who does our YLF, and Vance Martin. We have a really lovely staff who come together and support everything we need to do to get this done. So, without further ado, at this point, I would like to introduce you to our interim dean, James Anderson, who will be introducing the Chancellor. I do want to say, Dean Anderson has been such a support of the work of the center and has been really a phenomenal person in terms of helping us get through certain kinds of things we've had to navigate to understand how to make this work in the best way possible. So we are so appreciative. He'll be introducing our Chancellor, and if you haven't noticed the title of our academy, it would be the Chancellor's Academy. The Chancellor is, beyond doubt, one of our greatest supporters of our community and the collaborations that the university has with the community. So we've asked her to come in and share her thoughts and ideas. And so we're so pleased that she's willing to come in and do a keynote for us. So thank you for being here. So Jim?
Good morning. First, I'd like to bring you greetings on behalf of the real Dean of the College of Education, Mary Calantzis. I can't tell you how badly she wants to be here this morning. She's doing well, and she will resume the deanship for the fall semester. But she wants me to thank everybody for pulling this together. She wishes she could be here, and she wishes everybody a very successful Chancellor's Academy for this year. My role is to quickly introduce the Chancellor, and in learning to be acting dean, I've discovered that I'm still in training because they prepare a package for me every morning, but I should go to the office first rather than coming directly here. So I'm going to introduce the Chancellor from my memory. Sure. But actually, this time last year, I was on the search committee, and we were meeting to look for a new chancellor of the university. And you begin the process, and you never know who you're going to get. It's not quite like Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolate. We actually know the standards, and we know it's going to be a list of very highly qualified people. What you don't know, and what you hope for, is that you can get the one person that you want to be Chancellor of the university. And we did. And I'm very pleased with that. I want to emphasize three things that we learned. First, we learned that Chancellor Wise is a brilliant scientist, absolutely brilliant scientist, who's been at the forefront of neuroscience in this country. Her work as a historian, I don't quite understand it, but in simple terms, I think is what estrogens do to the brain, and the way in which they affect the brain, affect memory and neurodegenerative diseases and so forth. But from the beginning of her career, she's had a lifelong interest in the biological sciences. A BA is from Swarthmore College, and then she got an MA and PhD from the University of Michigan. After, she was a research associate at University of New Mexico, as I remember, and from there to be assistant associate and full professor at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And then from the University of Maryland, Baltimore, she went to the University of Kentucky, where she was chair of the Department of Physiology and Biological Sciences. And there she actually established a center on women's health, women's research on women's health. And by that time, she'd already developed quite a name with the National Institute of Health and National Science Foundation, and her publications and her research was going extremely well. She is a member of AAAS, the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences, and also the National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine, and had quite a career going as a researcher, and she's still a very active researcher. I don't know how much research she can get done as Chancellor of the University, but throughout her career, she has maintained a very active research agenda. And she left Kentucky to become both a distinguished professor and dean of the College of Biological Sciences, the Division of Biological Sciences at UC Davis. And after that, she went to the University of Washington as provost, and then we actually encountered her when she was interim president of the University of Washington. So we knew early on that she had a very brilliant academic career as a researcher and as a scientist. The second thing we learned was that she's also a very accomplished administrator, both as chair, as dean, as provost, as interim president. She had been an outstanding leader. And a couple of more things I would like to mention, which we learned, and at least I learned. And in today's search, social media gives you an advantage that we never had in the past. You can get video of people speaking and talking and doing things when they had no idea that you'd be interviewing them for a position. And there were two that really had greatly impressed me. One was Chancellor Wise receiving an honorary doctorate from her alma mater, Swarthmore, in which she gave a very short talk. And her emphasis was on generosity and on giving. And what I saw was an extremely selfless leader and someone that had very, very good academic values. Another one was her actually being bold enough and courageous enough in the midst of a budget crisis at the University of Washington to walk out with a microphone in front of faculty and students and staff all by herself and simply be very forthright and very honest about the challenges that UW was facing, and to take all kinds of questions, no matter how hostile. And I thought, that is a very courageous leader. And so we were very, very sold on that. Now, in the end, of course, you give a list of names to the president and the trustees, and you never know who they're going to pick. You really have to follow their advice and give them a list in which anybody that they pick would be hopeful. When I heard that they'd actually selected Chancellor Wise, all I said was, yes, that is a person that we want. She's been here for 1 year, but it seems like longer than that because she's been on a listening and learning tour, both within the campus and within the community. And so we've had quite a bit of interaction with her in the visioning process, things she's doing with the community. And I'm happy to say this morning that this particular event sort of merges both her interests in thinking about the university, our strengths, and what we can contribute in the future, and also a collaborative partnership with the local community. We are very, very fortunate to have a very, very brilliant scientist, a talented leader, and a very giving person as Chancellor of the University of Illinois. And without further ado, we really welcome Chancellor Wise this morning.
All without notes. Oh, I can't believe it. I am in awe, Jim. Truly, thank you very much for that very, very generous introduction. There are a few times in my life that I wish my mother were still alive and with me, and this was one of them because that introduction was truly, truly generous. So I want to, along with Lisa and Jim, welcome all of you to this wonderful week. I've looked over the schedule of all of the different events that will be going on all day, and I wish I could be with you the whole day, the whole week, because it looks like an incredibly wonderful learning and listening and engagement of all of you to be able to learn from each other. And I can only imagine the amount of work that it took to be able to organize this kind of a session that is so useful for everyone in the audience. First, if it's not clear to you, I want to reemphasize that this university is totally committed to K through 12 education, and in fact education even before kindergarten. First of all, for very selfish reasons, we realize that in order for us to have the students that we want to be able to accept here and who will succeed here, it is absolutely essential that their education through all of your work is absolutely stellar, and you are. These are two great, wonderful educational systems, both in Urbana and Champaign, that you are participating under with the great leadership of the superintendents of these two districts. So I know that the university is in good hands, in part because of the fact that we know that the students who come to us from your schools are well prepared. I want to talk with you just a little bit about the issues of community and university that we have been dealing with. Last year, we started with a transformational leadership, actually it was in February, with a transformational leadership retreat in which we brought together members of the community as well as members of the university to talk about how we could work together even better, because a vibrant university depends upon a vibrant community and vice versa. And we realize that if we don't have a healthy community, we will not have a healthy university. Also, if the university does not partner well with the community, Urbana-Champaign will not be everything that it could be. So we started that out in February. We decided on 4 projects, gave those 4 groups of people 60 days to come back with reports in terms of what they really thought we should be doing in the community in the short run. One of the groups was led by Laura Weiss, who is the president and CEO of the Champaign County Chamber of Commerce, and that group focused on education. And what she is doing right now is organizing volunteers to be able to go into the schools and help with the reading at the 3rd grade level, to be sure that those students are really ready to go on to finish the first 6 years and then the second 6 years of their secondary school education. Because this is the first time that I'm meeting with many of you, I thought I would just take a few minutes to tell you a little bit more about myself. I hesitate to do this, but I do want to tell you that I am the daughter of Chinese immigrants who came here in the late 1930s. My dad had gotten his MD in China and came to get his PhD at Northwestern, interestingly enough. And my mom had gotten her nursing degree in China and came to get her master's in nursing. They were supposed to go back to China on December the 12th, 1941. And when Pearl Harbor was bombed, they were able to stay in this country. And I was born here after the war. When I think of the difference of 5 days in my life, it's really pretty amazing. My parents were educators. They understood the importance of education. They pounded that into us every day. There was never a question of whether or not we would do well. We had to do well. And there was never a question of whether or not we would go to college, but just where we would go to college. And it was something that they valued more than anything else. My mother was the matriarch and in many ways the patriarch of our family. She taught us etiquette, she taught us courtesy, she taught us humility, and as Jim said, she was the one who really instilled in us the sense of generosity, that if we were this fortunate to be in this country, that we should be giving back right away. And I'm sure that you feel the same way, because you are not in education because you're trying to get rich. You are in education because you feel it is the noble profession that it really is, and the profession where you help the next generation of leaders at the very young ages that you are seeing them. Because my parents were deeply in love with this country, they taught me English first, and I guess that's the only thing that I wish they had done differently, because I think children really can learn 2 languages very easily. Their brains are able to separate and not get languages mixed up, and I wish I were more fluent in Chinese than I am. I always have to say, though, that I am an American first, and it wasn't until the 1990s when I first went to China that I realized that I actually was Chinese, that I looked like those people. Even if I didn't feel totally culturally with them, I certainly learned that Chinese was in my DNA, and in many ways more deeply than I ever appreciated before that. I suspect that because the global barriers are coming down and because boundaries are getting blurred, I think that you are teaching students from all over, not only born and raised in Urbana-Champaign, but also from many, many other countries. And that dealing with that kind of bringing them in, maintaining their distinctiveness, yet bringing them in to be Americans is probably one of your biggest challenges. We too have that very same goal. That is, we bring in students from all over, from big cities, from small towns, from Illinois, from, I believe this coming year we will be welcoming students from all 50 states, and as well as around the world. And we bring them in to this very, very sort of confined area and time in their life when they can immerse themselves in learning. But it's well beyond just the classroom. Our experiential learning, our global experiences for our students, our service learning is as important as what we teach them in the classroom. And I think that it is because of all of this that our students go back out able to be leaders in the world. So it's exactly the opposite of Starbucks, for example, where every single cup of coffee is supposed to taste exactly the same. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you should not be able to tell any differences. Whereas what you and we are providing is truly personalized learning. We take every student as an individual, we bring them here, try and introduce them to as much as we possibly can, send them out as transformed individuals, but truly individuals in their own right, so that not anyone looks like anyone else. What is really interesting to me is that one of the really finest faculty at the University of Washington was very instrumental in my understanding of the importance of even earlier childhood education. And I'm sure you recognize, even if you're teaching in kindergarten, that some of your students come more prepared than others. The Gates Foundation has this new program called Thrive by 5, meaning that if you are not set up before the age of 5 to really handle learning and absorb what is going on in your classrooms, that you're at a real disadvantage. Patricia Kuhl, who is one of the professors at the University of Washington, and her husband, Andy Meltzoff, learned that, in fact, a baby, an infant, as early as 19 hours can respond to an adult. That is, if you open your mouth, the child will open his mouth or her mouth also at the age of 19 hours. That's how early learning goes on. She also realized that language is pretty much determined. Your ability to say certain words in the accent and in the right pronunciation is pretty well determined by 18 months. You still continue to be able to learn a language, but it all happens very, very early. And teachers are the most important in this. Vartan Gregorian has shown that one teacher, even in a school that doesn't have totally all the teachers on board, can make a huge, huge difference. So I really do understand how much a single teacher can make a difference in my life. I was very, very fortunate to have several who taught me how to learn. Not what to learn, but how to learn. And that is what we are all doing, I think, in this room, in our own way. One of the most amazing books that I have read recently is a book by Eric Siblin on the cello. And the book is, I'm actually not sure I can remember exactly what the title is, but it has to do with the cello, with the Bach suites, and also with Casals. And what he talks about is the magic of hearing a Bach suite for the very first time. And it made me think about my own daughter, who is a cellist. And the very first time that I heard her play the prelude movement of the first Bach suite when she was at a music festival. And I turned to my husband and said, how did we ever create that? Two scientists not able to play any instrument, despite a significant amount of practice, creating a child who had some very particular talents and who is now struggling to be a professional cellist, but really continuing down that road. So teachers are so critically important in a child's ability to develop to their greatest potential. And I think that all of you are to be greatly thanked. We are so grateful that you are dedicating your lives to this profession. And so I wish you well this week. I know you'll be learning a great deal and be sharing a great deal more so that you can take this all back to your classrooms. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Good morning. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Phil Wilder, and I'm a secondary teacher collaborator in the Center for Education in Small Urban Communities. And I'm charged with briefly unpacking the theme of this year's Chancellor's Academy for you. In the 1960s, DC Comics introduced Bizarro World, an alternative universe in which the world of the superheroes was reversed. This same Bizarro World concept was emulated on Seinfeld, when Elaine befriended lookalikes of Jerry, George, and Kramer who just happened to be polite, respectful, and extremely unselfish. So let's look at what this Chancellor's Academy might be entitled in a Bizarro World universe. In a Bizarro World, the title could be Prescriptive Teaching, a 5-step process for teaching any student anything. Or it could be Read Like a Champ, 2 days to producing Gold Star High School readers. Or even Magic Lessons, Teacher-Proof Teaching for All Students. Each of these fly in the face of this year's theme, empowering teachers and students learning from practice. The first title implies that teaching is simple, can be scripted, and is an instructional one-size-fits-all for any student regardless of discipline, the local context, or the student, their knowledge, their cultural capital, their interest, their needs, etc. The second suggests that interventions for struggling adolescent readers, and we could even say younger children as well, could be reduced to an easy 2-day prescription of reading skills that any students can then miraculously transfer across any text in any class regardless of the learning context. And the last, well, I think the last is blatantly shouting that teaching is simply a matter of proper implementation and that knowledge about how to teach is created far away from Mallory Morris as she teaches in her 7th grade ELA class at Jefferson, or from Wendy Ma as she teaches her little ones at Kenwood. We chose empowering teachers and students learning from practice because we feel that in an age of high-stakes testing, scripted curriculum, programmatic interventions, scientifically based best practice discourse on teaching, that we can easily lose sight of our abilities as teachers to think deeply, to consult the wisdom of each other, to ground our teaching practices in the everyday smiles, frustrations, and even ahas of the little ones and not so little ones in front of us, and to blend the wisdom and research of the professional research community with the wisdom and research of our own practice. By learning from our practice, we can create our situated theories of teaching that directly respond to the unique students that are in front of us. So what are we to make of best practice? The notion of best practice has often relied, not always, but often relied on central tendencies, guided by variables as we compare methods used with experimental groups of students with the status quo methods used in control groups. To its advocates, evidence-based practice represents an advancement towards the creation of an inventory of instructional strategies that generally work in general situations across a general set of classrooms with a general group of students. Best practice implies that what has worked for thousands of students elsewhere under certain conditions will work for your students as well. And we can't ignore this research. For example, if you look at the text, the bottom right in green, the National Reading Panel report in 1997 synthesized over 100,000 research studies on reading between 1966 and 1997. And as the former National Center for the Study of Reading, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign certainly has one of the finest records of literacy research in the nation. This must inform our general approach and framework towards reading, literacy, teaching, and how we teach the students in front of us. Mistake number one would be to cast it aside and to think that what happens in thousands of other classrooms has no bearing on our classroom. It certainly does. But mistake number two would be to teach to the middle and to apply a one-size-fits-all approach. We must remember the ecological fallacy, as Joseph Schwab and Peter Heblowitz remind. We can't draw conclusions about specific students based on aggregate data or information from the entire group to which those individuals belong. If the average height of an employee at the Center for Education in Small Urban Communities just happened to be 5'10", we'd be foolish to think that a general approach to clothing would fit all employees. What happens in thousands of other classrooms shouldn't prescribe what always happens in our practice, and perhaps we could say the same thing about fashion. So I want you to meet Brad and Haney. I have nothing more to say here. Stylish in their own ways, while Brad's clothes may be closer to the norm in terms of size, the fashion practice is far from a good fit from either one. If this were a classroom, I surely wouldn't suggest that a one-size-fits-all best practice approach to teaching would fit the individual learning or even fashion needs of all students or TCs in a class or a center. Throughout this week, we want you to think deeply about best practice, to think about what your students were trying to tell you this year about their needs and the fit or the suitability of your practices. We'd like you to begin not to think of a solitary best practice for all students, but to think about the suitability and the fit of responsive teaching practices. Thank you.